On the 13th of December, 1577, a flotilla of 5 ships set sail from Plymouth, England. The fleet included the Marigold, the Swan, the Elizabeth, the Benedict, and the Pelican, later to be renamed the Golden Hind. It was to be an epic voyage which changed history and put England on the map as a seafaring nation. The fleet was under the command of Francis Drake, later to become a national hero and England's most famous sea captain. He became the first Englishman to sail the world. On the way, he captured more Spanish treasure than any other privateer in history, making himself and his crew among the richest men in England. The voyage took the fleet along the Spanish coast, across the Atlantic Ocean, to the southern Americas, the Straits of Magellan and Cape Horn. The Golden Hind was the fleet's only ship to make it to the Pacific Ocean, and the first English ship to do so. Along the coast, Drake stopped to repair his ship. He claimed the land for Queen Elizabeth I of England. Today, it's known as California. Francis Drake was born around 1541 in a farmhouse near Tavistock, not far from the English port of Plymouth. He was aged around 8 when the family were forced to move to avoid religious persecution. They went to live on an old ship, docked on the River Medway in Kent. Whilst Drake's father preached among the sailors, young Francis and his 11 brothers explored the ships nearby. He would hear exciting tales of adventures at sea and decided to become a sailor at the age of just 12 years. He was apprenticed to the master of a small coastal trader and learnt the craft of seamanship. When the master died, Drake inherited his ship. It was the start of a long and courageous life on the seas, searching for adventures, treasures, and victories against England's enemy, Spain. When the Golden Hind left Plymouth, it was actually called the Pelican. During the voyage, a gentleman called Thomas Doughty tried to cause a mutiny.
Your words are a mutiny.
Words? Why, Francis, the worst word that ever came out of my mouth is to be believed sooner than 3 oaths of thine.
Seize him! Bind him to the mast! Together. This fellow here is a sorcerer, a seditious and mutinous knave.
Drake had him tried and executed. Elizabethans were very superstitious, and the crew were afraid that Doughty's bad spirit would follow them. A new name for the ship would avoid such a ghostly visit. But what name? The main sponsor of Drake's voyage was Sir Christopher Hatton, a close friend of Doughty. So, as a mark of respect, Drake chose Hatton's family crest as the ship's new name. It was a golden female deer, in Elizabethan times called a hind. The 3 years aboard the Golden Hind were harsh and primitive, even by Elizabethan standards. Living below deck en route to the most dangerous sea passage ever attempted was dark, wet, and foul-smelling.
17th day of May, 1578. The grievous storms which beset us since we make our course south along the coast of Brazil continue to plague us. I find it my duty to diminish our fleet. The sickness has taken too many of our men already.
But there was no shortage of volunteers for a voyage with Drake, for all the crew knew that some of the treasure from captured ships would go into their own pockets. Francis Drake and the Golden Hind returned to England in 1580, the only ship in the original fleet to do so.
Drake, there's no mistaking him, but Drake is dead, wrecked and drowned in the Great South Sea. No. Drake. 'Tis he. Does the Queen still live? In good health, sir. Aye? Aye, in good health, master. And England is all well ashore. All's well, sir. Thanks, good master.
The Spanish treasure which he and his men brought back to the Tower of London was indeed a fine Christmas present for the Queen. Those who had invested in the voyage were repaid approximately 50 times their original investment, and even the cabin boy received a share worth in today's money some $2 million. Queen Elizabeth I could have paid off all her national debts with her share and had enough left over to balance the national budget. By way of a thank you, Drake was knighted aboard the Golden Hind on April the 4th, 1581. The Queen of England asked the French ambassador to perform the actual investiture to avoid upsetting the Spanish.
Arise, Sir Francis Drake.
In later years, Drake became a key figure in defending England from an attack by a huge fleet of Spanish ships called the Armada. Drake's adventures came to an end when he became ill with dysentery aboard the ship Defiance. On January 28, 1596, just off the coast of Panama, Sir Francis Drake died and was buried at sea. Even his Spanish enemies paid tribute by saying that he was one of the most famous and courteous men to have existed in the world. Today, the name of Drake lives on to inspire future generations of seamen and explorers. After Sir Francis Drake's triumphant return on the Golden Hind, the ship was berthed at Deptford for people to visit and admire just as they do today. Unfortunately, the ship began to rot after about 100 years. A chair and table made from her timbers are all that remain. Today's Golden Hind was built to commemorate the 400th anniversary of Drake's claiming of California. To complete the replica took 3 years of painstaking research and 2 years of construction using traditional crafts and materials. The new Golden Hind was built in Appledore, England and launched from Plymouth in 1973. Since then, she has sailed round the world 1.5 times, more than the original Golden Hind, and has logged over 100,000 miles. Today, she is a floating educational museum, currently on an extensive tour of North America. She is maintained only by admission fees, sales of souvenirs, and donations from the public.